Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to TEDx Talks here at Millersville University. Before I get to the point of my talk, which is called Reclaiming Innocence, I want to tell you a story about something that happened in 1936. In 1936, a young woman named Evelyn Curry was sentenced to death. She was in the death house awaiting her execution. She had been convicted, she had been sentenced. All of the courts that had reviewed her case had concluded that she was guilty, and in fact she was very close to being executed. The warden was with her in the death house. It was late at night. The governor was at home, and her priest was praying over her and giving her the absolution and last rites of her church. Suddenly, a uniformed vigilante burst into the governor's home and presented her with proof that Evelyn Curry was innocent. Another person had confessed, and this vigilante gave the governor this confession and said, "I have the true killer outside. You could talk to her." The governor read the confession, looked at the paperwork, saw what it meant, called the warden and said, "You must not kill Evelyn Curry. You must release her. She is innocent. The real killer has come forward." That is the story of the American justice system as it's supposed to work. That happened in 1936, and all that was required for the justice system to work correctly is for a governor to care about innocence, for a criminal justice system to care about making the right decision, and, in that particular case, to have the intervention of a hero named Superman. Because the story that I just told you is the very first adventure of Superman in Action Comics #1. I think it tells us a very interesting thing about the American psyche, that when the creators of Superman wanted a first adventure, something that he was going to do right off the bat, as soon as he'd been invented, his first exposure to the American public, this hero that was supposed to be not only super powerful, but super good and super righteous, who came to represent everything good and decent, truth, justice in the American way, the very first thing that they could have him do to prove how wonderful he was to exonerate an innocent person and to save an innocent person from death. Fast forward. It is now 1993, and a young man named Leonel Herrera is on death row. He's in the state of Texas. We know about his case because he has been convicted and sentenced to death for murdering a young policeman on a lonely stretch of highway right outside Las Cruces, Texas. Just like Evelyn Curry, he is soon to be executed. And just like Evelyn Curry, all of a sudden, we find out that someone else has confessed to the crime. Another person has confessed to the crime for which Leonel Herrera has for years been swearing that he is not guilty. His lawyers come forward. They burst into the governor's office, not as dramatically as Superman perhaps, but dramatically enough. They have the confession. This other person confessed to the crime. We must save Leonel Herrera. In that case, the governor said, "I will ignore this confession." They went to the courts. The courts said, "We will ignore this confession." The Supreme Court of the United States said, "We will ignore this confession." And in 1993, Leonel Herrera was executed. How does this happen? How does it happen that in America in 60 years we go from a country that cares about innocence to a country that does not care about innocence? How do we go from a country that values the justice of making the right decision in cases of life and death to a country that really is willing to ignore, in at least some cases, the truth? The innocently convicted are the collateral damage of the criminal justice system in the 21st century. How we got from there to here is the point of my talk, which I've called Reclaiming Innocence. And I hope that by the time I finish speaking, you understand that you, as citizens, can make a big difference to achieving the kind of justice in a system in which you think you now live, but really don't. Thank you.